Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas is on the Russian president's India visit. As Putin returns to India after 4 years, India hosting the leader for the defense and trade talks, among other sectors that will be looking forward to those talks, as Prime Minister Modi also displays multipolarity at its best. We're decoding what lies ahead. Also getting you the latest on the Ukraine war, a lot happening on the battlefield, dissecting those developments for you in just a bit. Is Europe arming for war with Russia? What's happening behind the scenes? Telling you all that you need to know. All this and more coming up. India has rolled out the red carpet for the leader of one of its closest allies. Let's get to these visuals first. Prime Minister Modi received the Russian president at the Delhi airport, the Palam airport this evening. The two leaders shook hands, hugged each other, exchanged warm greetings before heading out in the same car. Prime Minister Modi broke protocol by coming to the airport to receive his dear friend, bringing that personal touch as well. Prime Minister Modi is hosting a private dinner for the Russian president at his official home as the two leaders aim to strengthen a nearly 8-decade-old partnership that has endured despite a very complex geopolitical landscape. In fact, the two leaders will be holding talks at Hyderabad House in a restricted format. The official engagements start tomorrow. That's Friday. This will begin with a meeting with the President of India at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is likely around 11 a.m. IST. And following that, he is expected to visit Rajghat to pay tributes at the memorial, spending roughly 30 minutes at the site before heading to Hyderabad House, where the bulk of the diplomatic discussions will be taking place. What's on agenda? Just about everything from defense to trade, healthcare, alongside expanded cooperation in mobility partnerships, culture, people-to-people exchanges, and scientific collaboration. Remember, the Russian president arrived in New Delhi after 4 years for talks with the Indian Prime Minister. And the visit is about defense, it's about trade, but also geopolitics and signals to the world. All eyes are on the Modi-Putin meeting and what lies ahead, not only because the two leaders share that personal rapport, which has been, of course, talked about, but because the visit also comes at a rather turbulent juncture as far as the global political landscape is concerned. The last time Putin was in India, the world order looked very different. And at that 2021 summit, the two sides reaffirmed their special relationship and discussed military and economic cooperation. 3 months later, the Russia-Ukraine war started. The West tried to turn Putin into a global pariah in a way, restricting his travel and also sanctioning Moscow. And that was also before Donald Trump returned to the White House, remember, and upended years of steady US-India bonhomie with the rhetoric and some of the world's most punitive tariffs, throwing the Indian currency into a tailspin in a way. Now that's the context against which India is hosting the Russian president at a time like this. It's both a symbol of the enduring ties, a message. Neither India nor Russia will be dictated to by Washington. In fact, Putin also in India after reasserting his red lines as far as Ukraine is concerned. And with the Russian forces making recent gains on the battlefield, the Kremlin feeling its position has strengthened. For India, the visit comes amid tense trade relations with the United States, after Trump unfairly accused New Delhi of quote-unquote bankrolling Moscow through the cheap oil purchases. A charge that led to additional 25% tariffs on Indian imports, remember. And it goes without saying, India looks after its interests. It always has. But the anxiety in the West has become visible now. And how? On the eve of Putin's arrival, the French ambassador, the German High Commissioner, the UK High Commissioner, wrote a joint op-ed in the Times of India titled, "Russia doesn't seem serious about peace," quote-unquote. In fact, India's External Affairs Ministry issued a sharp rebuke, calling it not an acceptable diplomatic practice to advise India publicly on its ties with a third country. Europe may struggle to accept it, but the days of imperial instructions are long gone. India is a sovereign republic and it makes its own choices. Its relationship with Russia going back decades and remains deeply entrenched. Russia is still India's biggest defense supplier. And during the war in Ukraine, the West did not care that its sanctions on Russia could have ripple effects across the world. And so India did what it needed to do for its own people by buying discounted Russian oil. Only after US peacemaking in Ukraine failed this year did Trump actually try to vent his frustration by accusing India of funding Moscow's war machine and the pressure to stop buying Russian oil. The result, new sanctions, new tariffs. Some private sector buyers in India, in fact, have slowed purchases, but India has also agreed to buy more US oil and gas. But the Kremlin also saying cooperation will continue. Its spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, admitted the obstacles, but also said that the impact of energy flows to India would be insignificant and brief, and that Russia has the technology to circumvent sanctions long term. But that's not even the real issue, is it? It's the fact that the West still does not understand India in a way. For decades now, New Delhi has pursued a policy of multi-alignment. It does not react well to external pressure. So Trump's attempts to force India's hand have backfired and led to the worst decline in relations in years. Yet both sides know they are strategic partners. A new 10-year framework has been agreed to deepen defense technology, intelligence cooperation, and the trade deal is being negotiated, which India expects to finalize by the year end. But none of that signaling a break with Russia. India's position is consistent. It will engage everyone, which then brings us to today. Defense sales will be central, especially Russian S-400 systems and the Su-57 fighter aircraft, along with growing trade and energy cooperation. The optics are clear. No Quad summit this year, but full state visit for the Russian president. Now, for India, this is normal. For the West, it's a problem in a way. For the rest of the world, the lesson is quite simple. The West should stop telling India how to run its foreign policy. And when Prime Minister Modi and the Russian president greeting each other and that messaging being put out, it's more than just a photo op. It's a symbol of a time-tested partnership, to say the least, and also a reminder that the world is no longer unipolar. Multipolarity is here. And in this new century, India will not just talk multipolarity. It will let its actions do the talking. In fact, on that note, some breaking news coming in right this minute. As per sources to WION, the expected outcomes from President Putin's visit, let's just lay it out for you. The visit will go a long way in strengthening economic cooperation. President Putin traveling with a large group of business persons, and India expects to improve the trade deficit with Russia. Multiple avenues being worked out to increase Indian exports to Russia. Exports in the field of pharmaceuticals, automobiles, agricultural products, including marine products. Indian businesses and products will get a bigger market. And this will also boost job creation and well-being of the farmers. Multiple agreements and MOUs expected in the fields of shipping, healthcare, fertilizers, connectivity. More cooperation also to be seen in the people-to-people ties. Very significant mobility partnerships also, culture and scientific collaboration. So a host of those sectors on the table. Let's go straight across now to Siddhant Sibal, who's been tracking those developments very closely. A lot of anticipation, a lot of expectation. Siddhant, if you can just lay out for our viewers what is expected to unfold as part of the agenda. And also, like we've just pointed out, multiple sectors and a host of those issues that are going to be on the table.
Well, this is a state visit, and all the elements of a state visit will be present, whether it's the ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan tomorrow morning, whether it's the state banquet or the press statements at the Hyderabad House. We know that several pacts will be announced, including on the mobility aspect, shipping. Trade deficit is a concern for India. India wants Russia to buy more from India, and agriculture products are one such commodity at a time when Donald Trump's tariffs have kicked in. But the big picture clearly is the emphasis on India's strategic autonomy. The visuals that emerged from New Delhi earlier today in last few hours will be closely watched in the West, especially in Washington, D.C. The other aspect for Russia clearly is that at a time when it faces Western sanctions and Western isolation, it clearly has friends, especially in Asia, Asian giants like India and China, towards which it is looking for not only more stronger political relationship, but also stronger trading relationship.
Right, and we are coming back to you, Siddhant, for further updates on that front. And some more breaking news coming in. 4 unidentified military-style drones reportedly breached a no-fly zone and flew towards the flight path of the Ukrainian president's plane. This was at Dublin Airport. In fact, sources also telling the Journal that the drones took off from a location in the northeast of the Irish capital and flew towards the flight path of the Ukrainian president in breach of a no-fly zone. That's the latest coming in at this point. And according to reports, the Ukrainian leader's plane landed slightly ahead of schedule just moments before the incident happened at about 11 p.m. local time on Monday. The drones reached the location where Zelensky's plane was expected to be at the exact moment it had been due to pass, and the Irish Aviation Authority had issued a drone no-fly zone over Dublin and surrounding areas for the duration of the Ukrainian president's visit. In fact, Ireland security services reportedly saying the drones were large military-type devices and that the incident could be deemed a hybrid attack. The incident also mirroring similar drone incursions in Europe in recent months, which led to the closure of airports in Brussels and Denmark and caused significant security tensions. European capitals on high alert after a series of Russian incursions into the airspace. And Zelensky's visit to Dublin went off without any major hitches as such. Kiev and Dublin both have officially offered no comments on the reported breach. That's the latest coming in at this point, and we will continue to get you those updates. Let's now get you those updates coming in from the battlefield that refuses to slow down in terms of the action there. A front line where every hour, in a way, is redrawing the map. Russia-Ukraine war, the most intense 24 hours, in a way, as both sides brace for a decisive turn. Our next report telling you more.
Ukraine's eastern front is collapsing into chaos, marking a pivot point in this grinding conflict. Russian forces are unleashing a brutal, focused offensive, shattering defenses and tightening the sidelines. This is not a slow retreat, it is a catastrophic breach. Across the front line, Ukrainian brigades are facing a tidal wave of steel and fire, an assault so overwhelming it has erased entire units in mere hours. Moscow claims to have neutralized a staggering 1,250 soldiers in the last 24 hours alone, a figure that is difficult to verify independently amidst the fog of war, but the scale of the destruction is undeniable. The relentless pressure is visible from the sky. Newly released drone footage shows what was once a Ukrainian town, now a wasteland of dust and shattered concrete. Troops trapped in these cities in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region are sending desperate pleas for extraction and resupply.
The situation is difficult. Not just difficult, but very difficult. Currently, there are very big problems. First of all, with logistics. That is, as of now, for a very long time, no transport at all has been able to enter there due to very close contact with the enemy, and a huge number of both FPV drones and drones that carry out remote mining.
On the diplomatic track, things are moving rapidly. President Putin confirmed his recent contact with a key Trump envoy, describing the peace talks as difficult. President Trump believes his Russian counterpart wants to end the Ukraine war.
You spoke with Mr. Witkoff and with Mr. Kushner last night. Did they give you the sense that President Putin still wants to end the war, wants to make peace?
He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now, whether or not, that was their impression. Their impression was that he would like to see the war ended.
Ukrainian officials warn that multiple settlements in Donetsk are now under extreme pressure. Russian units continue pushing west with fresh reserves. For now, Ukrainians are holding, but the question looms, for how long? Bureau report, WION World is one.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of War is fighting a battle not just overseas, but also in Washington. Members of his own party are allegedly questioning whether he should continue leading the Pentagon. That's right. And the backlash reportedly started following a closed-door briefing on US missions targeting suspected drug smugglers across Latin America. Senior Republicans reportedly grew furious when the Pentagon officials failed to explain the legal basis for attacking the civilian vessels. According to a Wall Street Journal report, lawmakers also complained that the US Defense Department did not send any legal advisors to justify the missions. While the Defense Department officials who did attend this classified briefing allegedly were unable to explain the mission strategy and also the scope. And this comes as both the US House of Representatives and Senate Armed Services Committees have reportedly launched separate investigations last week into a September 2nd US military strike that killed at least 11 people. Reports alleging that 2 survivors of the initial missile attack were later struck again as they clung on to the wreckage. Legal experts, lawmakers reportedly questioning whether a war crime may have occurred. Admiral Frank Broadley, who oversaw the mission in September, is scheduled to meet with lawmakers this week. And according to the WSJ report, while some Republicans continue to have confidence in Hegset's leadership, for many the confidence has allegedly eroded sharply during his 10 months in office. The Washington Post reported that Hegset gave a verbal order to eliminate everyone on the targeted boat, a directive that allegedly guided nearly 20 similar strikes. When 2 people survived the first missile, Admiral Broadley reportedly ordered a second strike to follow Hegset's instruction. And that's not even all. Separately, the Pentagon's internal watchdog has concluded that Hegset's use of the Signal messaging app in March this year to discuss Yemen strikes may have exposed US troops to danger. The controversy surfaced early this year when the American magazine The Atlantic revealed that its editor-in-chief, remember, was accidentally added to a Signal group chat in which Hegset and former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz discussed strikes against the Houthis in Yemen, which included details about the timing of the strikes, the type of the aircraft to execute it, also the kind of missiles which would be used. The details were reportedly shared just 2 hours before the first American bombs began falling in Yemen on the 15th of March. And the internal Pentagon inquiry found that Hegset's use of the app could have endangered American personnel and missions, especially if it had been disclosed to a foreign adversary like the Houthis, who could have used the information to actually take down American planes or better defend their positions. While Mike Waltz was soon replaced as National Security Advisor, Trump rejected calls for Hegset to be fired. Europe worrying that a war with Russia is imminent, with more and more NATO countries arming for a direct war. Reportedly, in the latest, Lithuania has unveiled an expanded conscription plan that will run year-round from 2026. You heard that right. A 24/7 conscription. If imposed, it will make the Baltic state one of the most mobilized members of the NATO. And at a time when Europe is accelerating its militarization in response to the war in Ukraine. Now, under the plan, young people will be assessed for fitness at the age of 17 through mandatory health checks. They can then be called up straight after high school. The armed forces say they intend to recruit around 5,000 people every year. Most will serve 9 months of mandatory service, while smaller groups will basically be assigned shorter specialist terms, junior officer training, or multi-year part-time basic training. In the year 2015, Lithuania restored compulsory military service after a 7-year suspension, later making the draft permanent. Officials say the new expansion is a targeted step in strengthening national defense and describe military readiness as a key priority in today's security environment. But it's not just Lithuania. Across Europe, compulsory service is returning. Sweden, in fact, brought back the draft. This was in the year 2017. Croatia voted in October to reinstate it after a 17-year pause. Latvia plans to extend the draft to women by 2028, while Estonia and Finland have already increased annual recruitment. European NATO members have also agreed to boost military spending to 5% of the GDP. Lithuania has recently approved a record defense budget for 2026. A record defense budget worth 4.79 billion euros, or more than 5% of the GDP. These measures are all framed as responses to what NATO members describe as a Russian threat. Moscow denies this, calling the allegations of hostile intent nonsense and fear-mongering. The Kremlin has also condemned what it calls reckless Western militarization, arguing that arms deliveries to Ukraine only prolong the conflict without changing the outcome. For now, Lithuania says its year-round conscription is about preparedness. The plan will come into force in 2026 as Europe builds up its armed forces at a pace not seen since the end of the Cold War. And before we go on any further, a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. NASA has removed a top Russian astronaut after a spying scandal. You're hearing that right, getting you the complete story in just a bit. UN warning that Myanmar is becoming the meth capital of the world. Telling you all that you need to know and how things reached this point. Moving on for now, the US military is now fielding combat technology reverse engineered from Iran. In fact, Washington's newest battlefield edition is a low-cost kamikaze drone modeled on Tehran's Shahed 136. The latest weapon reportedly heading to West Asia and will be part of US military's first one-way attack drone unit based in the region, marking a rare moment where American forces openly adopt the very hardware that has been used against them in the past, reportedly. The US-built drone reportedly mimics the Iranian design almost down to the frame. This move marks a dramatic shift from America's reliance on expensive, time-consuming defense systems. Instead, the military is betting on large numbers of inexpensive, expendable attack drones. The US Secretary of War's initiative, called Drone Dominance, drives this change. The Pentagon has set aside $1 billion over the next 2 years to acquire hundreds of thousands of one-way attack drones from domestic manufacturers. Now, these drones can be transported quickly and deployed with minimal logistical burden. According to reports, the drone looks strikingly similar to the Shahed 136. With a triangular wingspan slightly over 8 feet, the drone uses multiple launch methods from catapults to vehicle-mounted systems, allowing rapid launches from improvised locations. The platform operates autonomously, navigating and identifying targets using onboard sensors and artificial intelligence with little human intervention, and has an estimated flight time of 6 hours, reportedly. The cost is a major factor, reportedly, driving the Pentagon's decision. Each drone reportedly costing around $35,000, far cheaper than the traditional US strike drones like the MQ-9 Reaper, for example, priced at roughly $16 million reportedly per unit. Now, in many battlefield situations, shooting down kamikaze drones costs more than launching them. Reports claiming that the American version includes upgrades not seen on earlier Iranian models, including satellite data links that enable real-time control over vast distances, across vast distances. and the ability to strike moving targets. While swarming capabilities are also believed to be integrated, allowing multiple drones to attack together with mid-flight adjustments from human operators. With these deployments, the Pentagon is signaling a whole new strategic era, one where quantity and adaptability matter as much as sophistication. And the US is now entering the same drone battlefield it once tried to defend against. But this time, using Iran's own blueprint, reportedly. On to a story that has triggered a series of questions and serious concern. This story comes from Kenya. A report by the Kenyan Parliament into the conduct of troops stationed at a British military base close to the town of Nanyuki in Kenya has alleged human rights violations, environmental destruction, and sexual abuse by British soldiers. You heard that right. Basically, a parliamentary inquiry in Kenya accusing British troops training there of a pattern of sexual misconduct, allegedly, and environmental harm that has led the forces from the former colonial power to be seen as an occupying presence, quote unquote. The inquiry into the British Army Training Unit in Kenya was carried out by Kenya's Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations. And reportedly, the findings of the investigation by the parliamentary committee focused on defense and foreign relations, reportedly highlighting rising frustration in the country over the conduct of soldiers from the British Army Training Unit, Kenya, who have faced a raft of highly publicized accusations in recent years, reportedly. In fact, a spokesperson for Britain's Defense Ministry said in a statement to Reuters that the ministry deeply regrets the challenges that have arisen in relation to the defense presence in Kenya, quote unquote, and said that it was prepared to investigate new allegations in the report once evidence is provided. Just for context here, thousands of British troops can pass through Kenya for training missions in any given year, reportedly. In what has also been reported, the committee's report, which was dated November 25th but published on the Parliament's website on Tuesday, said it had uncovered a disturbing trend of sexual misconduct by those personnel marked by rape, assault, abandonment of children fathered by soldiers, allegedly, as has been reported. In a statement it provided to the parliamentary committee, the unit said it has zero tolerance for sexual exploitation and abuse and takes any allegations very seriously. It added that environmental audits showed high levels of compliance with the Kenyan regulations. The current defense cooperation agreement between the two sides was signed in 2021 and expires next year. On to a major shake-up that has occurred in an upcoming NASA mission. It involves one of Russia's top astronauts. Allegations of illegal handling of sensitive US-based technology reportedly forced a sudden personnel change just months before launch preparations move into high gear. Veteran Russian cosmonaut Oleg Artemev has been abruptly removed from that SpaceX Crew 12 mission, which is scheduled to fly to the International Space Station in early 2026. Artemyev was originally selected as part of the 4-member team reportedly, but he is now off the roster and replaced by fellow Russian cosmonaut Andrei Faddeev. Russia's space agency publicly attributed the switch to Artemyev's transfer to another position, but multiple reports, including in Russian media, claiming that Artemyev allegedly took photos of classified documents and rocket hardware during a visit to a SpaceX facility in California last month. He allegedly then smuggled that information out of the building on his phone. If confirmed, this act would violate the international traffic in arms regulations, a US government system that tightly restricts the sharing of defense-related technologies, including spacecraft components and engineering blueprints. Russia-based investigative outlet, The Insider, reportedly saying that an international investigation is already underway to determine whether Artemyev intended to pass the photographs to a foreign government. Now, so far, officials are not claiming that the information was gathered with the intent to damage the United States. But if the investigators proved that the photos were collected to benefit another country, the case would escalate into espionage, just to put it simply. Oleg, remember, has completed 3 previous missions to the International Space Station and spent 560 days in space, including 8 spacewalks lasting over 53 hours. The 2026 mission, though, would have marked his first flight aboard the SpaceX Dragon capsule. A brutal wall of Arctic air charging south. A once-in-200 years freeze is about to hit the United States. More than 200 million people bracing as the polar vortex unleashes its coldest assault in modern history. Our next report getting you the complete story.
Brace for the coldest blast in over 2 centuries. A massive polar vortex, a swirling storm of Arctic air, is gripping the U.S. with brutal intensity. This week, millions from the Midwest to the Northeast face temperatures colder than any recorded since the 1800s. The mercury is plunging towards new lows, threatening to rewrite weather history for a staggering 235 million Americans. Thermometers dipping to bone-chilling lows as the polar vortex's icy winds move southwards. Historic records set during America's 19th century, winters may be eclipsed in places like Chicago, Detroit, and Boston. This is not just a freeze, it's the most extreme cold seen this season. Experts say that the reason behind this unusual freeze is the polar vortex. It is a circular current of strong veins high in the atmosphere over the Arctic that keeps brutally cold air locked up in that region. Weather experts say that it has weakened and slid southward towards the mid-latitudes, spilling cold Arctic air into heavily populated areas.
We found it.
In November 2025, a rare and extraordinary flower bloomed in the forests of West Sumatra, Indonesia. This enormous parasitic red flower, dotted with white speckles, is so elusive that spotting it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So naturally, when a joint expedition involving Indonesian flower hunter Septin Andriki, local guide Iswandi, a team from Indonesia's National Research and Innovation Agency, and Oxford University biologist Chris Thorogood found that flower, it became global sensation and made headlines. For Septin, this was a big deal as he spent 13 years pursuing the flower. After a 20-hour journey and a grueling 3-hour hike, he finally saw the bloom with his own eyes. Overcome with emotion, he knelt beside it, crying in joy. But what should have been a moment of shared triumph turned into controversy. Why is that? Oxford University's initial social media post credited only its own scientists, completely omitting the Indonesian researchers who made the discovery possible. And that omission sparked massive outrage in Indonesia. Prominent voices, including former Education Minister and presidential candidate Anies Baswedan, have called out the university reportedly for failing to recognize local scientists. Writing and also referring to non-playable characters in video games, the minister said our researchers are not NPCs. Oxford acknowledged that backlash and also fixed this mistake. The university acknowledged Septin Iswandi, the Indonesian team, praising Septin as a local conservation hero and also thanking Iswandi for leading them to the bloom. For Septin, recognition is secondary. He is dedicated to the cause of conservation, educating visitors, observing Indonesia's rare flora, and to date, he has seen 12 of the country's 17 known species, Rafflesia species, bloom in the wild. His passion has also cost him personally. He quit his teaching job, earning just $6 every 3 months to fund expeditions across Sumatra and East Java. Septin warns that habitat destruction for coffee and palm oil plantations continues to threaten the iconic flowers. And he urges conservationists to list Rafflesia on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Endangered Species. And he now farms rice, cucumbers, corn, bananas, and organizes nature trips for the visitors so others can experience Sumatra's rare flora firsthand. In articles that have cited him, Septin says that it does not matter if his name is not published. He says, and I'm quoting, the important thing is educating people about conservation. A humble response from a true conservationist, but the entire episode once again throwing open something that has been talked about and also questioned for academics, commentators, also showing a long-standing issue in a way as far as global science issues are concerned. The alleged marginalization of researchers from the global south, often referred to as parachute science. And this is also not the first time local scientists have been overlooked in a way. In 2012, Indonesian researcher was left out of the discovery of the Megalara garuda, a giant wasp in Sulawesi, despite formal collaboration agreements as such. The rediscovery of this flower is more than just about science. It's a reminder that the heroes of discovery, of conservation, are not always the ones in the headlines. Amid the destruction in southern Gaza, a rare moment of joy has brought hope for thousands. A mass wedding in Khan Yunis turned rubble into a stage and grief into celebration for that moment. 54 young couples exchanged vows standing on ground shattered by the war. The ceremony, backed by the UAE, took place outdoors on a platform built directly over the rubble on a stage that in Arabic means for gown of joy. Decorated with flowers, surrounded by Palestinian flags, crowds gathered around that stage, cheering on, singing traditional songs, celebrating. Families, members, elders embraced the couples, celebrating unity after years of loss. The UAE organizers reportedly selected the grooms and brides through a lottery system. Drawing from thousands of applications across Gaza, many young people applied knowing that a normal wedding has become impossible to afford after 2 years of war and displacement. The event was fully funded by a humanitarian initiative from the UAE. The selected couples received tents, clothing, everything needed for a traditional ceremony. Items that many families in Gaza can no longer provide on their own. In Palestinian culture, weddings are a major social milestone that end up, of course, bringing families together and shaping their futures. Although the war has crushed homes and resources, the mass weddings showing that the desire for love, for being together, for community and for hope continues to stand. On to Myanmar now. It has officially become the world's main source of illicit opium. The United Nations saying Myanmar's opium poppy cultivation has hit a decade record level. With early indications, its heroin output is now being trafficked to Western markets. War-ravaged Myanmar is a hive of black market activity ranging from illegal mining to internet scamming and the manufacturing of illicit drugs like meth and heroin. And wartime hardship as well, forcing Myanmar's poor farmers to cultivate the crop. Myanmar has long ranked among the world's top opium poppy producers, but it has also claimed the top spot only after the Taliban began cracking down on opium cultivation and trade in Afghanistan. And now analysts are saying that illicit activities are key income sources, funding the civil war which has racked Myanmar since the military snatched power in that 2021 coup. According to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime report, this year alone, opium poppies were farmed on more than 53,000 hectares of Myanmar soil, recording the largest territory since 2015. The agency's yearly Myanmar opium survey said after the Afghanistan crackdown, there are emerging signs that heroin trafficked from Southeast Asia reaches markets traditionally not supplied from the region. The UN report cited a cumulative 60-kilogram haul of suspected Myanmar origin heroin seized from airline passengers traveling from Thailand to the European Union in 2024 and early 2025. The UN noting that while the scale is not yet significant, the changed environment could encourage more cultivation and production of opium in Myanmar. Opium poppies were farmed extensively across Myanmar well before the country's civil war, but drug monitors are saying the current conflict has supercharged the black market for drugs. With a weak central government, industrial infrastructure destroyed by fighting, and the soaring poverty levels there spiking the desperation. Myanmar's junta has waged offensives this year ahead of an election slated to start on December 28th, a vote dismissed by many observers as a ploy to disguise the continuing military rule there. In fact, the report noting how instability drives farmers towards tending opium poppy, further intensifying the conflict. Conflict acts as a two-way for the drug economy. According to the lead analyst at that UN body, who also said that opium poppy cultivation was one way both farmers and armed groups could actually make money during the war. While opium poppy farms had expanded in size by 17% from 2024, the report noted that this year's yield was largely static at around 1,000 tons. On to a story that comes from Egypt. It's about a clear message that the country is sending out regarding the return of artifacts held in Britain's museums. What exactly is Egypt saying? That it is not looking for the return of these artifacts, but it's also very clear that it wants the return of the Rosetta Stone. Now, before we tell you more about that, let's just break down for you what has been said. According to the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, many of the items on show in the UK were legally removed from the country and now form part of, quote-unquote, London's identity, he says, adding that they belong to both Britain and Egypt. Also saying that they went out of the country legally during the earliest time Egypt allowed a division of the artifacts that came out of excavations, and they are the best ambassadors of Egypt to attract a lot of audiences to come and visit Egypt. But here's what he also said. The Rosetta Stone had been taken from Egypt unlawfully by the British during wartime, and that they would love it to be returned because Egyptians have never seen it, according to him. Generations read about it and know about it, but they have never seen it. And there are lots of voices in Egypt thinking, we should argue for its return as it is their right. That is what has been said. Now, for those unaware, the Rosetta Stone basically is an ancient Egyptian artifact. The stone is on display at the British Museum in London. And just for context, the British Museum catalogue alone lists nearly 50,000 objects from ancient Egypt, including mummies, wall paintings from tomb chapels, and statues. Astronomers and space agencies around the world are right now focusing on a comet, the mysterious interstellar object continuing to fascinate researchers. And now the latest data showing that the comet is erupting in ice volcanoes. What exactly is happening and what it's spewing? Could that rewrite how we understand alien worlds? Our next story, decoding the developments for you.
A ghost from beyond our stars has come alive. Thri Atlas, the most talked about space object of recent times, has again shown a mysterious behavior. First identified as a fleeting guest, this comet is now revealing a core secret. Recent telescopic data shows not a smooth, passive ice ball, but a body scarred by extreme thermal activity. Scientists call them ice volcanoes. These cryovolcanic vents are rupturing the comet's nucleus, blasting massive jets of frozen carbon monoxide and water vapor into the vacuum. The eruption is colossal. The analysis of Thri Atlas' latest images shows that it is spewing material plume, measuring hundreds of thousands of kilometers across. This extreme sublimation is transforming the comet. Some scientists now theorize that the characteristic tail is not one cohesive structure, but rather a chaotic swarm of smaller, fragmented debris. There has been endless speculation about the origins of comet Thri Atlas since astronomers first spotted it in July. Much of the online speculation has centered around whether this interstellar visitor could be an alien spacecraft. As Thri Atlas races past our system, on a once-in-a-lifetime year flyby, scientists have only weeks to gather data. After that, it will vanish into interstellar night, leaving behind more questions than answers.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. To some, it's an extreme ideology. To others, it's the very soul of India. To some, it's rebellion. To others, it's a principle of nation building. Coming soon to challenge perceptions in RSS Centenary Year, Kesariya at 100.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat